Hello, I'm Joel Baird, the General Manager of Missoula Community Access Television. Thanks for joining us in our 2015 Candidates for City Council interview. Today with me in the studio is Bill Murray. He's a candidate for Ward 1. Bill, welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're most welcome. So we're asking the candidates all the same questions.
Sure.
And I just formulated them to allow each candidate, to say what their priorities are. I'm not looking for any specific responses
Sure.
on issues before the city. So here's your first question. What motivates you, Bill Murray, to run for office?
That's a great question, Joel, and I've lived in Montana since 1970, off and on for 35 years. 18 years in Ward 1, so I know that area pretty well. And I've been a homeowner all my time in Montana, so I've owned a home. And over the years, of course, we live our lives, do our job, pay our taxes, and we pretty much just expect government to run itself and not be intrusive, be where it is, just by taking care of the necessary things that it's supposed to take care of. I found over the last 10 years, as I lived in my house in the Rattlesnake in Lincolnwood, that my taxes have really gone up. And I've watched that very carefully, and I became more involved to the point where on the last day before filing, I finally said, yeah, well, I'm going to do something about this. So I'm running to more or less get a handle on how we spend our money. I want to spend towards our needs and put our wants off to the side and spend them as we can. I also have a plan on how I'm going to do that, and that's on my website.
Oh, you want to tell people the website? So
Sure. Sure. The website is, I'll put the www there.
Yeah.
www.billmurray, M-U-R-R-A-Y, Missoula.com. On that website, there's a profile of me, a little background, my education, all the necessary things, as well as a plan on how I expect to help improve things here in Missoula.
That's great. So people watching, they can go to your website and read. Sometimes words go right past us when they're spoken.
Yep.
It's BillMurrayMissoula.com.
BillMurrayMissoula.com.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Here's your second question. Why do you think you are qualified?
Well, I've been in Montana a long time, so I understand the culture of Montana. I've been a voter for many years. I understand the duties that people have, the civic responsibilities, and I've exercised them. I'm an independent, and I mean I am an independent. I vote for the best person, be it a Democrat, Republican, independent, whoever it may be. So I feel I'm balanced and have a fairly good viewpoint. I'm also owned a business, and I've worked for businesses. So I've signed both sides of the paycheck. I have an understanding what that's all about. And I understand, as a homeowner, how things such as taxes can impact your life. I feel very much involved in the community in the sense that I watch what's going on, and I'm pretty well aware.
Okay. Well, and I think, in your motivation, you gave a pretty good overview of tax containment.
Yes.
Or looking towards a more constrictive budget. But you probably have more than one issue. What will your priorities be if you're elected?
Well, of course, we have in the city, the major portion of our budget is spent on police, fire, and roads. We do spend a lot on parks, too. So the major priority is to spend according to what our needs are. I want to look at that. I also want to look at the city as a whole and make sure that we are allocating whatever other funds we have, allocating it properly and with transparency so that we all know as voters what things will be spent on. I'm an advocate of public input, including big ticket items that might come before the council, that we should do public votes whenever we can.
Like a referendum?
Like a referendum, yes.
Okay, because there is consent agenda,
Yes.
I told Bill before we started recording, I've been recording city council for 20 years. So there's consent agenda where often a lot of items are, and then there's public comment on the consent
I
agenda.
understand, and unfortunately, as we can see by voting statistics, too many people are not paying attention. And I think it's time that we in Missoula pay a little more attention. The best way, of course, is to vote. And the second best way, if you can, get down to the meetings and the neighborhood council whenever you can, as often as you can. But as I said, most people are busy out there just working for a living, trying to make things happen in their own family, raising kids with all the problems that go along with that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important the big ticket items be brought before the public, and we vote on them.
In a citywide referendum.
That's the way I would.
Do you want to do this? Do you have anything particular in mind, Bill?
Well, I mean, obviously in the past couple years, we've been talking about acquisition items of, the water system, which in theory is really not a bad idea. I think it's good for the city to own the distribution, but at the same time, it's a very big cost, and I think we as the public should have input by a vote. That would be one, as an example.
Anything else you want to say on priorities?
Well, other priorities, of course, is we have to fund the things that need to be taken care of. I mean, we need to buy fire trucks for firemen and police cars for policemen. We need to make sure that the parks are well taken care of. I think we have to take care of the necessities and really do it in a way where we look at the cost first. How much does it cost to make this thing run? And then everything that's requested by any agency or any part of government, let's see what we can afford without impacting our taxes in a way that's greater than inflation.
Right, because a lot of people have been commenting on the various, some people call it bond fatigue, that the $42 million parks bond passed.
Yes.
The school district is going to ask the voters very soon for $158 million.
Yes.
And so those are some of the things on your mind.
Well, in my, we all have opinions. And of course, it all sounds great until you get your tax bill. And then you wonder, wow, this is something. I'm a proponent. My wife has been a teacher her whole life, and I've always supported these school levies whenever we get a chance to. I'm looking now. It's really a shame that we have to maybe take a look at, wow, what will this do to me if I approve this? And I would say it's going to give hesitancy to some people. I also think that I have a neighbor that's in that's a school board member. I think there was a lot of input. But when I look at that bond, I would even drill down a little bit further and say, what are the absolute necessities? What is it exactly that we have to do? We're at that point where bond fatigue is sinking in.
And I'm just going to give you more time, that's all.
Okay.
And ask this question. A lot of people, when there are amenities, boulevards, or I understand most of the mature trees in town are reaching the end of their life. People they planted in the teens and the 1920s.
Yeah.
And these trees are nearing 100 years old. So the parks in that regard. But I think my general question is, often people say, well, we want to attract business, and if our town doesn't have that quality of life, is the big corporation going to come here if we don't have the best schools, the most beautiful parks, and so on? I just wonder what you would say to that kind of discussion.
I think, of course, those things are important, but we have to prioritize. I think the first thing is being business friendly. In other words, a welcoming environment to businesses. I think they have to know that things are predictable, that there will be fair and I might say common sense type ordinances regarding business and fees and so forth. But you're right, you need good schools. But we need jobs. We need jobs first. And that's what we really need to improve our quality of life here, because with good jobs, people can afford homes. They will become taxpayers in the sense of owning a home. They will be paying taxes. So I think that's a number one priority.
What does the future of Missoula look like to you?
Well, because we're growing, and it's an attractive place and has now been discovered by more than just the
Right,
Montanans.
it's in a lot of magazines.
And so forth. We're getting a lot of press. I think we need to grow in a sensible way. I think we need to have sensible, common sense building standards. I think all of that is important. I think we need to be careful where we annex properties. In other words, not go 5 miles out of town just to bring in 100 more taxpayers. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we need to try to become more efficient internally with the land that we have and build appropriate type housing in those places.
Right. I think the Development Office just released their Missoula Growth Policy Plan. It was in the Missoulian a couple of days ago. They said the town would grow to 114,000 or something by what year? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, and by nature of that, we're going to expand outside our present boundaries. We're just going to. I think we have to do it sensibly. I think we need to really look at the cost benefit. I think we need to try to understand what it means to grow. If we outgrow our schools, I mean, we have to build more schools. If we outgrow our capacity to house policemen in a police department, we have to build another police station or a precinct station. I think we need to really examine growth as it comes before us. I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
And actually, I haven't spent that much time really looking into the future. But if elected, I will make that a high priority to really understand that and vote in a fiscally prudent way.
What haven't we touched on? And here we have 5 minutes. What haven't we touched upon that you would like to address?
Well, you know, when I walk around the ward, and I think, you know, this is a city council board position.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things that I've been hearing is the urban deer problem. So, now, am I an advocate of shooting Bambi? Heck no. No, don't want to do that. My grandkids would kill me. My wife would probably walk out. So I think there are some things that we can do. One of the constituents that I was talking to brought up a plan that seems interesting. I don't know the details, but we should study plans in cities that have had similar problems. There's a place on some of the outer islands of California where they're being overrun by deer. There was a sterilization program of the male deer that would temporarily sterilize them during the rut. That seems to have some success. You know, I'm not saying that was or should be the plan, but that could be something we look at. And deer have become a big problem to property damage too. Many cars, including my own, multiple times in my family have hit deer. And I've actually hit one in the city limits on Rattlesnake Drive, which did not damage my car, but killed a deer. You know, it's not
It's
good.
not a pleasant experience for anyone. I mean, it's dangerous.
Yes.
And even if they survive it, that sense of trauma that must come from is pretty strong.
Yeah, so that would be one of the big issues at the neighborhood, in a lot of the rural neighborhoods, and I would take that out to East Missoula, the Rattlesnake,
Grant Creek,
all that. Some out in the western part of the ward and down south somewhat. In fact, we're seeing all kinds of animals wander into the city. That's just natural. They live there. They were there first.
Right.
We have to accommodate some of that. But in the case of overpopulation, we need to start thinking of ways we can, control that.
Any last words?
Well, I would say if you look at my website, examine my website and my 7 points, as well as compare me to my opponent. There is a choice this year, and I think I would represent the people that are fiscally conservative and really concerned about the taxes, as well as what government is doing within the city of Missoula. Check me out. I'd appreciate your vote, and thank you very much.
Bill, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, that was Bill Murray. He's a candidate for Ward 1, and he has a website you can check out, billmurraymissoula.com, if you'd like to learn more about it. Well, thanks for joining us for this segment of MCAT's interviews of City Council candidates for Missoula City Council, and we'd urge you, please, to vote this year. It's a mail-in ballot. If you don't receive the ballot soon, call the elections office at Missoula County. Well, for MCAT, I'm Joel Baird. Thanks for joining us.